In a matter of seconds, though, we are going to be joined by a legend, a pioneer, a trailblazer, a Guinness World Record holder, most pay-per-view appearances, most matches, most wins, most WrestleMania appearances, most Raw and SmackDown matches by a female wrestler. In my opinion, the greatest female wrestler of all time. How could you say otherwise? Third-generation superstar, has done it all, continues to do it, just recently re-signed with World Wrestling Entertainment, from the most famous family in wrestling history, if you ask me. And most importantly, salt of the earth, a salt of the earth Canadian. One of the nicest human beings you'll ever come across. She is the one and only Natalya Neidhart. She is kind enough to join us right here and now. I hope she heard that introduction because it was glowing with praise. Natalya, how are you? So good to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for, I gotta see the Bret Hart. Where's the Bret Hart?
Okay, there's a lot of your family here. First things first.
Oh my goodness.
There he is.
This is so I'm not
You
gonna
can
move it.
You can take it. I mean, you hold it.
This is so cute, guys. This
Come
is
on.
adorable. Oh my God, this is
That's
so
my
cute.
guy. You know,
So I know you love Bret. So
I love him more than anything.
I'm gonna hold on to Bret.
Can you please tell him I say hello?
I will. This is just so cool.
There's more.
I love.
Old Bret
oh my
Hart,
God, this
Montreal Forum
this
newspaper ad.
Wow.
There's you know these guys.
The British Bulldogs.
And
I love
Matilda.
this. And Matilda. How cute is that?
You know this woman right
There's
over there.
Davey.
You know this woman right over my shoulder, right over there.
Me.
There you are. You were kind enough to give me that.
This is so cool.
Your family is everywhere.
This is awesome. I love all the wrestling, which of course, I know you love wrestling and you love old school wrestling. I love when people love wrestling because it's so much easier to connect, especially when you come from like a long line of wrestlers. Like I always feel like since I've been a kid, that's just like, it speaks that universal language of growing up with like Gene Okerlund's voice in the background, or Bobby Heenan, or like Gorilla Monsoon, or it's like, those are like the voices of like my childhood sort of thing. So
and you were just in the most famous wrestling building of all time, some might say, last night.
Yes. And I never, like whenever I'm in that building, I always go to where the entrance is. And it's just something I always do. And I always like walk out through the curtain through Gorilla because it's like my way of remembering Bret and Owen when they had their match there.
Oh yeah, WrestleMania 10.
WrestleMania 10. And it was like, I think arguably one of the greatest WrestleMania opening matches ever. And Bret had pitched for Owen to have that match.
Wow.
He had pitched for Owen to have that rivalry with him. And so I always feel like it was one of the most incredible moments of Owen's career. And it was like, whenever I'm at MSG or inside the building, I always go and just like stand there, look around and think about them. Because I would have had nothing if it wasn't for them, paving the way for me to do what I'm doing today.
Did you watch that live?
I did.
How old were you?
Yes.
It was 93.
Gosh, we're gonna date me.
Yeah. Well, we're the same age.
So no, I mean, and I've always watched wrestling. Like since I've been a kid, I always loved watching my dad on TV because I knew it was special. Even when I was a little girl, I knew it was special. I especially loved like when it was my dad and Bret versus the Rockers.
Oh my gosh.
Like my little sister and I had, and I've spoken about this before, but we had these like big crushes on the Rockers. I like had a crush on Shawn Michaels and she had a crush on Marty, and it was like our dad was on TV and we were fans too. You know what I mean? Like I love wrestling and I've grown up in a huge wrestling family, of course, but I've always been a fan.
Sure.
You have to be. I feel like it's important.
By the way, did you know that your father, the late great Jim the Anvil Neidhart, who I adored as well, he made his MSG debut January of 1985.
And Howard Finkel was the one who announced him.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it was 40 years ago, 2 months ago.
Wow.
January 19th. Who did he beat that night?
You know what? I'm not sure, but
Tony Garea.
Tony Garea.
Yes.
Okay, and Tony Garea was there when I first debuted in WWE. He was a producer there.
Yes.
And he was such a sweetheart, but he was kind of like he was very old school.
Yes.
So you are a wrestling historian. I'm very impressed.
I adore that stuff, and I adore your family, and I adore you. You've been so kind to me. You've been kind to my family. You've sent my kids merch and stuff like that. So
got to spread the love.
I know, and we talked about doing an interview in studio as you were deciding your future over the summer. The timing didn't work out. You eventually decided to re-sign with WWE.
Right.
Could I ask, did you consider not?
So for me, that's a great question. Ariel with the hard-hitting question.
I'm sorry,
No, you're good.
When you're a free agent, you got to look at options, right?
So when I was figuring out what to do with my deal had come up. So it was up at the end of June of last year. So I had this huge decision because I was coming out of a 5-year deal. So I was, and of course I've been in WWE longer than, signed and uninterrupted longer than any other woman like in WWE history.
Since 07, right?
Since 07.
Yeah.
So I've never been let go, and I've never really had an injury that's taken me out longer than like 8 weeks. So I've
unbelievable
been so steady there. And when I think about it, like as far as other people that have kind of had that, I think about The Miz. The Miz and his longevity and just how he's just gone, like he's just so stable, so steady, so reliable. And for me, and Miz is incredible. I think he's an incredible entertainer. But for me, I think I was like reaching a crossroad where I was like, okay, to be brutally honest,
Please.
I have been screaming for change for myself for so long. And so it was just at that, sorry, I get emotional talking about it, but I was at that crossroad where I was like, I need more. I need more. I want more. And I'm just, and the thing about being in WWE for as long as I've been there is that it's very easy to get comfortable. It's very easy to go, I drive a nice car and I live in a nice house and I sleep in a nice bed. And for me, I don't sleep well. I don't sleep well because I'm so hungry. I'm so hungry for more. And I mean, that's why like one of the greatest luxuries I have in my life is having my own ring. Like having my own ring and being able to train there and having that outlet. And so that is something that I expressed in resigning, is that I just want more. And a lot of times you have to take a chance on yourself. You have to take a chance on yourself, and you have to do things that are risky. And I would rather take a risk and land on, just fall on my ass than to do nothing. It is better to take a risk and have it fail than to do nothing. And so I had expressed some of the things that I wanted to do with the powers that be, and Triple H was great. He was extremely supportive. He was very understanding, and it was nothing against the management that was before him, because I have had an incredible career. I've gotten to do so many things. When I think about all the things that I've done and like just having all those Guinness World Records, it's because I've worked so much. I've done so much, but I've just very much needed change. And I think change comes with stepping outside of your comfort zone, which is why in the last month or so, you've seen that I've taken on.
Yes. Okay, because it's interesting because you said change, and then I think when I hear change, I think you don't resign. But what you did was you resigned, but as you were saying,
a lot of change in mind.
Bloodsport, Josh Barnett, WrestleMania week, which I'd love to talk to you about because I think it's a fascinating promotion. And then NWA, Crockett Cup, I think that's May 17th. There's the Bloodsport, and there's the poster for NWA. This is so big time stuff.
Yeah, and that's a big part of
you made this happen.
I did. I very much made this happen. I had to work very, very hard to make this happen. And
was it difficult?
Well, it's just that it's very unusual that a talent, especially somebody that has been there as long as I have been and who's as established as I've been, and who, like I said, people, there might be a perception of me that like, she's like, listen, I got expensive cats. I love the idea of stepping outside my comfort zone and like just doing something that nobody would expect. And so I think also I'm at the stage too where like I have been wanting so much more and screaming for so much more, but I think I have to do different things and I have to get a little uncomfortable. And so Josh Burnett is a really good friend of mine and somebody that I deeply respect. And I reached out to Josh and I was like, hey, you're going to be here during WrestleMania week. I would love to do what Shayna did last year. I said I told Josh and Triple H, I said I would love to work in that space and to show people what I can do. Because Josh's style, I've trained with Josh before. It is very, very reminiscent of the dungeon style. Yes. And of course, where my family has come from. And so Triple H and Josh were both super supportive of it. And like, it's one thing for me to just jump back into the division and do something. It's another thing for me to go outside of the division, like literally run a gauntlet on my career and go, hey, either I'm going to prove everybody wrong or I'm going to prove myself right, that I really am one of the greatest women wrestlers in the entire world. And I'm screaming for change. And so that's, again, why I reached out to Josh and why I reached out to Billy Corgan.
And so just curious, to play devil's advocate, if you didn't re-sign with WWE, you could do the Cody Rhodes thing, right? The Drew McIntyre thing, and then work for everyone. Why did you re-sign with them but then go this route of trying to work with these other promotions?
Because I have a lot of faith in Triple H. I have a lot of faith in his ability to tell stories. And I've seen just in the last year, for example, the entire company is hotter than it's ever been, ever. We're hotter than the Attitude Era right now. Madison Square Garden was just we were in the locker room and the floor was vibrating in the locker room. It's just every show is big. It's not just WrestleMania. It's not just, we're doing Royal Rumble. Every single show we're doing is sold out. Every single show is big. And a lot of that has to do with the direction and how we're telling stories. So prior to this, sometimes I would just be, and this isn't a dig at anyone by any means, but I would be thrown into a storyline that would just last a week, or just thrown into a match, or just thrown into this, or just thrown into that. And I think I was always, and I still am, a good sport and a good, team player. I always want to kind of do the right thing. And I it's not that I was I don't like to make demands or throw my weight around or be difficult backstage. So sometimes I would find myself in certain storylines and things that that I knew that they weren't going anywhere. Whereas I feel now the difference is that Triple H really has a vision, and it takes time to get there. And you see that vision. I see so many incredible changes with people like Nia Jax, with Liv Morgan, with Chad Gable. Those are three people that I feel Triple H has really changed their whole trajectory and turned everything around for them, when it's hard sometimes when you may have a certain perception of you or how you are. And I think that he is incredible at telling stories with talent. And it takes time to tell those stories, though. You see the very, very slow build. Even with the Naomi, Bianca, and Jade storyline, it's a slow building story, but when they finally get to where they need to be, and they're still going, it is so good. And I think that takes time, but in order for me to kind of reinvent, I have to take chances. So my decision to resign comes in my faith in the company's new direction and where we're going, and with new leadership, and just, the way that we tell stories. And so sometimes it doesn't always happen right away, but I also think that I have to do my part too as a talent. You cannot get comfortable. And I say this all the time when I'm coaching at my ring, the dungeon. You cannot get comfortable. When I see people tell me they want it and they're not in shape, I'm like, you're comfortable. When somebody tells me that they want it, but they don't train, if somebody tells me that they want it, but they're not a student of the game, you have to be watching everything. I watch everything. I watch wrestling across the board because I want to see what everybody's doing. And I want to find inspiration, and I want to go, oh, I don't want to do that, or oh, I want to do this, or I loved what they did. It doesn't have to just be in WWE, but that's the thing, is that I think there's so many opportunities right now with the company being as big as, it's just the direction that it's going and the ability to tell great stories, that for me, I'm really excited to just kind of dive into that, but in the right way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How do you feel about right now? Right now, it seems like you've got something going on with Maxine, right?
So Maxine is, first of all, I have so much respect for Maxine. Sydney is her real name. But she is very hardworking. She's on her days off. She's training. She's going to several different schools. She's trying to learn. She's going to the Performance Center. Of course, she didn't have a wrestling background. Right. She wasn't on the independents. So she is trying to learn and she's trying to grow. But for me, to be brutally honest, I do have to be careful about just aligning myself with anyone, because think about how many tag team partners I've had in the past. And that's also because I've been in WWE for so long. 2 decades. Of course, I'm going to have a lot of tag team partners, but I really want to be careful as far as moving forward what I do and who I'm aligned with, and that everybody has the same sort of vision that I do, which is greatness. I do not want to do anything that's mediocre. I want to do things that are great. And so that's the thing, is that I'm ready to do great work. And I think Maxine is totally capable of doing great work, but it's going to take time for me to really align myself with anyone, because of, just having so many different tag team partners.
Did you feel at a point that it was mediocre stuff, that you weren't proud of the work?
I mean, there's things that I think, especially because growing up in the business, and again, this is to be brutally honest, growing up in the business with a parent like Jim the Anvil Neidhart. Yeah. My dad is, he's one of my greatest inspirations in my life, but growing up, my dad lost his job a lot. And so, for me, I think subconsciously, even before I ever got to WWE, I always had this fear of I have to make everyone happy. I have to please everyone. I have to be the company girl. I have to be everything that my dad wasn't. I have to be perfect. So whatever Vince wants me to do or whatever, my boss wants me to do, I just have to do what they want me to do. And so sometimes when you're trying to be perfect for everyone else, you can lose yourself. And it's not that again, I'm not playing, I'm not playing the victim or anything, but sometimes for example, I didn't necessarily want to pass gas in a storyline, but that was what was asked of me at that time. So for me, I was just trying to be yes, whatever you guys need, not only even if I don't like it, I'm going to try to make it fantastic. And so sometimes when those things don't work out, you can compromise the integrity of your character. And it takes a little bit to kind of get that back. And so, that, again, not to go back to what we were saying, but I just feel now with the storylines and the way that the company is being run, everything is just being so much more well thought out. And I feel it's such a great opportunity for me to really do what I always wanted to do, which is tell great stories and just be great. And so that's exciting to me. That is so exciting to me to be able to go, I'm in the best shape of my life. I wake up every single day. I don't know how this happened, but I wake up every single day pain-free. I love what I do. I love the women that I work with. And I just love wrestling. And I just want to be my absolute best. I was going to say the F word, but I
No, you can. You can say whatever you want here.
I might drop an F-bomb at some
That's
point
fine.
later.
I want to. We could go down this road, but I don't want to forget that you have something that you want to announce, and I want to ask you many things about this announcement. So the floor is yours. You've been teasing something that I think relates to this, or maybe it's another thing as well. But you are going to announce something very special to you. So what is it?
Do you want me to say it?
Yes, I would love it.
Okay.
It's your announcement. It's not mine.
So over the last year, I have been working on a book. And so today I'm announcing my book. And I was so nervous about, I was so nervous. I don't know why, I was so nervous about announcing it, sharing it with the world, because I just have been it's been my baby.
Yeah.
I've been working so hard on this and really just pouring my soul into this. And I was so grateful that this summer Triple H allowed me to have time to work on it and to really dig into it. Once I signed my new deal, I started working on it and really just pouring my soul into it. And it was one of the most cathartic experiences of my life to be able to go, okay, I want to tell my story. Because once I started writing it, I realized that a lot of people don't know my story. That a lot of what has been shared or what's out there of me or what WWE has shown of me through 18 years of being in WWE and even being on Total Divas, it's a lot of people don't know my story. And that's really cool because I have a chance to tell my story. And it's scary. It's scary to open up in a way that's so, I really things I've never talked about, things that I was scared to talk about, things that I was scared to share, the things that have happened within my family, with my dad, which my dad and I have, we were very close, but we had a very complex relationship, which it's just being able to dive into that and to be able to tell the story. I just realized by the time I got to the end of it, I was nobody knows my story. And that's what makes me excited. So while I was scared to kind of share it, because a lot of it's really deep stuff, and a lot of it, there's a lot of fun in it too, and there's a lot of insight, so especially having worked for 18 years in WWE and having all sorts of crazy, funny scenarios. There's a lot of stuff that I think when I was writing, it's Natty, don't be afraid to say this. Don't be afraid to talk about this, because this could literally be something that could help somebody else in their life. This could literally be somebody else's survival handbook, for how somebody else is going to deal with a situation. Whether, and there's moments where we talk about, like I said earlier about my dad losing his job. When I started to really dive into those chapters and started to really talk about it, I was man, when I was a kid, it was 1 minute your dad's on TV and he's larger than life and he's winning the tag team championships. And then the next day your dad's getting fired. And as a kid growing up, there was just so much volatility because the wrestling business was very volatile back then. And it wasn't just my dad was getting fired for just because. Vince McMahon loved my dad. He had a soft spot for my dad, but my dad had a lot of issues that were going on, and more than what people know. Not just drug-related issues or substance abuse issues, which are more public. So we dive into what those issues are. And then, of course, as I grow up and as my dad and I shared that same journey with my career and for me, having done the same career as him, which is wrestling, I learned so much along the way, and more than I can, explain in just an interview, but it was so therapeutic, and it was so hard at some points to talk about because there's just some things that just make me emotional sharing because, there's so much meat on the bone.
Right.
Like with my Uncle Owen passing away or my husband's injury that ended his career. My dad dying. Like, people just don't know about exactly what happened and exactly how it went down and exactly what we were going through. And so I'm so grateful that I'm able to share it. It's really, I feel like this might be my most special piece of work.
Wow. I believe it's available October 28th. And the title is a very profound one. It kind of, I love the title, but it makes me a little bit sad as well. It's Last Heart Beating. We have the cover. There it is. It's a beautiful cover. Is that accurate? Do you think you are the last one? I know it's a play on words a little bit, but are you the final stop? And also, before you answer that question, without giving away too much, you were kind enough to allow me to read a few chapters, which I did last night, and I enjoyed it immensely. And like the fourth line in gave me like a little bit of a shot in the arm because you write, "The first and only woman from my family to wrestle, and I feel the weight of that legacy on my shoulders every day. And part of that weight is always trying to make sure my family's achievements in this fast-changing business are never forgotten." That's an incredible burden. That's a lot for one person to handle.
For me, I just never take it lightly. And this book is so special to me because I just want to make my family proud, but I feel like I was never supposed to make it. You know what I mean? Like it's just in such a male dominated sport, especially when my grandfather just, he started all of this. He was like the tree who, he was rooted in the soil, and he grew these branches that helped my uncles, Brett and Owen and Davy Boy and Dynamite and my dad. He was able to give us all of that. And so like, I've just had I very much wanted to make my grandfather proud, very much wanted to make Brett and Owen and Davy and Dynamite, my dad, proud because their legacies are huge. And it's, I think about, our families, like my family our legacy is so special. And we've done, like, my family's really paved the way for so many people in the industry, but I am in WWE. I'm still after 18 years, I'm still standing. And I outlasted everyone.
Yeah.
And in WWE, that's very, very hard to do. And it's funny, I actually saw Booker T this morning. Booker T he helped me come up with the cover or the title.
Oh, wow.
Sorry, Booker T helped me come up with the title. He did an interview, and he was asked about, which female superstar he thought was the greatest of all time. And I was just shocked when he said me. And I was like, wow, I'm blown away that Booker T would say that. And then I heard what he said, and he said, because she's the last motherfucker breathing.
Wow.
And so I said I was going to drop an F-bomb.
Yes,
but,
yes.
And so, of course, I'm a huge Tupac fan, and that's from, Booker T said it's from Breathing.
Yeah.
From that Tupac song, Breathing. And even for the women, I outlasted all of them. All the women that I started with, I'm still standing. So I got to the end of my book when I finished the last chapter, and I realized, holy shit, I didn't have to main event a WrestleMania. I didn't have to win all these titles. I didn't have to have all the glory that everyone else had. I am still here. And I'm still standing. And I'm still doing what I love at the highest level of the sport. And I'm okay. Like I'm unscathed. Like I'm here. And so that was to me like just this epiphany that I had about my career and, just like, I'm so lucky that I get to do what I love. I'm so grateful that I get to work with such amazing people. I've had such incredible influences on me from, like one of my greatest influences is Brett, which I know you love Brett. Like, and Brett, to me, so many people would never have the things that they have in their career without Brett. And I'm just speaking openly about that because I don't I think people love Bret and he's very celebrated now, but he doesn't always get his flowers for, for other people's greatest matches. You think about, for example, Steve Austin, WrestleMania 13. Steve says, he's gone on the record and said, if I didn't have that match with Bret Hart, I may never have gotten to that next. Like Bret really helped as a catalyst for so many others while still maintaining his integrity as one of the greatest to ever do it. And you think about Bret's match with Owen, WrestleMania 10, Madison Square Garden. It was the greatest match of Owen's career because it was on obviously the grandest stage. But Bret really, really went to bat for Owen. He really fought for Owen to have that storyline. It wasn't supposed to be for Owen at all. It was supposed to be for somebody else in my family.
Oh, really?
So
Can I ask who?
I think it was supposed to. It'll get into family politics.
Okay, I understand. Yes.
But
we don't want that. We don't want that.
Save it for the memoir.
Okay, all right.
But so Bret really fought for Owen to have that moment, and like it was so special. It was one of the most special nights of Owen's life. And when you think about, Bret Hart and Davey Boy Smith, Wembley Stadium, people to this day still talk about the magic of that match because Davey was phenomenal. Bret, they had this magical story, you know what I mean? And so, like, I think about that match. I think about Bret with Mr. Perfect, and you think about, you never know what those people are going through in their lives during that time. And sometimes when you hear, like, when Bret will tell, like, the backstory of, like, what was going on behind the scenes, even for my dad. My dad was struggling so much in his personal life during some of the most exciting times of his career. When they won the tag titles for the first time, my dad was really struggling. And I know because I lived through that with my dad. And then
when you say struggling, what do you mean? Substance?
Just struggling, yeah, with substance abuse, with keeping it together. I think it was so much pressure for my dad because back then, they didn't have the resources that we have now in WWE. We've got every resource in the book. WWE has everything we need to succeed and more. If you're going through something as far as mental health, they've got somebody there for you. If you're dealing with a concussion, we've got a whole team of people that work with us on that. If you're dealing with a substance abuse issue, WWE has a whole team of people that deal with that. Like there's every sort of resource we could have now because the company is such a well-oiled machine. Back in the 80s, like they didn't have all that. So when professional athletes go through stuff with, which is common now, we talk about, mental health in sports. Simone Biles was a huge catalyst in all of that, basically bringing to light, like, hey, mental health is extremely important. And just because I'm the best in the world doesn't mean that I'm not dealing with it. But my dad growing up, he suffered from depression. He suffered from anxiety. He suffered from a lot. And then he was on the road 280, 300 days a year. And he was just never home. So when he was home, he had like 2 days to kind of rehab his body and, rest and catch up and pay bills and do all this stuff. So like he was just physically exhausted, mentally exhausted. And of course they didn't have guaranteed contracts. So if you got a little banged up or you had, situations, you had to kind of work through it. Otherwise you don't, pay your bills. So, growing up with my dad and all that volatility, it's just Bret really was an anchor for my dad.
There he is, the big man right there, the legend.
And my dad is just like, he's one of my greatest inspirations. And I love my story that I share with my dad. Like he's the main character in my book. But Bret really helped him so much. My dad would have never had the career that he had in WWE without the support of my mom having his back at home and Bret having his back on the road and having that incredible support system. Like it's just, we all need that, but like my dad needed it more than others. And like, that's why I want to give Bret his flowers. Cause he's really a huge reason for why my dad had the success that he had because he had my dad's back.
What's interesting is you witness some of this, like in the book, you talk about some really dark days. Your car getting repossessed, your family car, house foreclosure. You go from being the richest family on the block to the poorest family because of these ups and downs. You shared a letter from Vince McMahon to your mother about why he was having to release your father. And so you witness all of this, all this heartbreak, and yet you go into that same business. Most people would say, I want nothing to do with this. Look at what it did to my dad. Why would you follow in those footsteps if you saw what it did to him? Hey there. Sorry to interrupt. just want to remind you, if you haven't already, please do hit that subscribe button. We would appreciate it very much. And while you're at it, give us a thumbs up too. You know, we've got live shows, interviews, clips, and a whole lot more going on this here channel. All right, now back to the show.
As hard as it was at times for our family, because, you know, there's a time, I don't know if did you get the chapter about us moving into the Hart House?
Yes, of course.
So when, you know, there's a moment in the book we discuss, we lost our home.
Yes.
So we weren't homeless because we had my grandfather's house to live in. So my mom and my sisters and I moved into the Hart House.
In Calgary.
In Calgary. So, like I said, we weren't homeless because we had the Hart House to move into, and we moved into a room in that house, and us four. And what was right outside my ring, or what was right outside my window, what was right outside the room was the ring, the wrestling ring. My grandfather had a wrestling ring in his yard. And when I looked, like, even as a teenager, and I looked outside, like, the window of that room that my mom and my sisters and I shared a bed in.
Wow.
There was a wrestling ring, you know, so it was like this, it was just this subconscious feeling of, like, wrestling was always our anchor. It brought us the best, and it sometimes brought us the worst. It gave us the most amazing moments, like WrestleManias, and my family has literally lived and died for it. So that ring was just like that visual of the ring that my grandfather actually designed and built. He had his own ring, and he welded it, designed it, all of it. It was his design, and it was a 20 by 20 foot ring on the Hart House property. But that ring was right outside the lawn of, like, it was just, you know, if you lived in that area and you were walking your dog, you'd see a wrestling ring on the lawn. And it was just, when I looked out the window, that's what was there. And so that's also really, you know, there's a lot of very cool moments in the book where, like, I didn't realize that until I started writing it, that I was like, holy shit, this, like, there's been so many aha moments while writing it, that I was like, I knew that, like, wrestling would be what saved me. Like, I knew that it would be what grounded me. It was the only thing that when I started doing it, when I started, like, my very first day in the dungeon with TJ, I just fell in love with it. It was like, it was an addiction. It was so fun. I got such a high off of it that I just wanted to keep doing it. I had so much fun. I just felt so much, like, instant passion for it. And that's the thing, is that when you start doing this, you start to realize how much fun it is. There's nothing like it. You know, you see Travis Scott.
Yeah.
And he's talking, I love that clip where he's talking to Triple H about, like, I want to do more of this. And Triple H says, like, isn't it fun? Like, there's nothing like it. It's just, there's nothing like it. Even at the smallest scale, like in a little room in the dungeon, which is just a small little room in the basement of the Hart House, or in front of 100,000 people, which I performed in front of. Like, it's just so much fun.
Why do you think your sisters never followed?
They are totally opposite of me.
Okay.
Like,
did they even dabble? Did they try?
I mean, no. Like,
Okay.
they're just, you know, they're totally different than me. And that's the thing, is that we're all three of us are very different, but I'm so grateful that I was able to, like, do it, because it's something that brought my dad and I really close together. Like, he didn't initially want me doing it. And I've spoken about that before in interviews. He did not want me doing it at all. And then he came to one of my shows. It was only in front of, like, 50 people. It was at the Ogden Legion in Calgary. It was, like, a very small...
The Stampede show?
Yes, Stampede Wrestling. And he was so excited. He saw me throw a forearm. And he was like, afterwards, he, like, came backstage and he was like, I didn't even know he was there, because I had asked him to come to the show, and he was late getting there. And I was like, oh, he probably is not going to come. Like, I'm sure he's not going to come. And I had it in my mind that he wasn't going to come. And then I was in the ring, and I could see him, like, from a doorway, just watching. And he fell in love with what I was doing. So it was just, like, it brought us closer. It gave us a different relationship that, like I said, after I wrote the book and got to the end, I was like, I am so happy that we got to share that together. Like, it was just so special that we got that. And not everybody gets that with their parent, you know, not everybody gets to have that. So, and I think that's what makes Charlotte and Rick, you know, like, I love Ashley because, for many, many reasons, I love Ashley, but she has that special bond with her dad through the good, bad, and everything in between. Like, it's so special. Same with The Rock. Same with The Rock and his father. You know, I know their relationships are complex. You know, Dwayne has spoken about his dad having a complex relationship with him, but great at the same time. Like when you get to share that with your parent, it's just like such a unique experience. And nobody understands it because unless you're really in the trenches like we are, nobody really gets it. You know, I was saying that to Brett the other day. We were talking and I was just talking about the book. And I was saying, because I love Brett's book. It was actually Brett. It was Brett and Becky Lynch that inspired me to want to write a book. Because I loved Becky's book. Yes. If you haven't read Becky's book, sorry, I've been so emotional. I feel like this has just been like a therapy session. But Becky Lynch's book is phenomenal. And after reading that book and listening to the audio version as well, I was like, I really want to write a book. And so it was Becky's book that inspired me a lot. And then Bret Hart's book. I mean, it's a New York Times bestseller. Incredible. But Bret's book, his book is really special. He's very, very honest. And that's the great thing about Bret, is that not everybody's going to like what he says and not everybody's going to agree with it. But he's very, very honest and he's very real and he's very, he's got a great recollection. And he told me, he said that when he was, you know, and he's spoken about this before too, but when he was on the road, like his very first years in wrestling, he'd carry like a tape recorder and he would talk into his tape recorder after his matches. And he told me, he's like, Natty, you need to keep a journal of everything after the shows and talk about how that match made you feel and what it was like working with this person and your day's events and things that were happening at home. And he kept like a journal throughout his whole career. And so I actually have done that. Wow. I have like thousands of notes about people that I've wrestled and that you know, those nights and those moments and so I'm so happy that I'm able to have all that, you know, documented and to be able to do that, because Bret really inspired me with, you know, he was able to go back and recount certain situations and certain things, and really, you know, he was also super self-deprecating in it.
Oh, it was great. Like the book was phenomenal. It was quite thick. I read it on my honeymoon. I loved. I adore Bret Hart. Like I don't know if you truly understand how much I adore your uncle. I adore this man, and when I see things like. They paid homage to him at Elimination Chamber, and your father with the heart attack in the main event. Did you see that?
I did.
This stuff makes me feel so great because he's the first famous person that I ever loved. You know what I mean? I told you the story about being a kid, and my mom told me to close my eyes when I'm at the doctor's, saying, think of something that you love, or think of something that makes you happy, because I was so afraid of getting a needle. And I would think of him winning the title. That was my happy place. That's how much I adore this man. But you know what's crazy? March 11th is today. I don't know if you know this. March 11th, 1983. Very special day for your father. He became a Stampede Wrestling Tag Team Champion for the second time with his partner, Mr. Hito. Do you know this man? Here it is. I want to watch it with you. Here's the finish right here. The great Jim the Anvil Neidhart. At the time, just known as Jim Neidhart. He's there in the red trunks. You see him?
I do. Oh, my gosh.
You ever see this match?
You know, I feel like I've watched so much wrestling that I have seen it, but I haven't seen it in a minute.
March 11th, 1983.
Wow.
Neidhart and Hito win the Stampede International Tag Team Championships, beating Duke Myers and Kerry Brown. And there's the finish right there. I love this stuff. Gordon Soley on the mic. A malfunction at the junction. Look at him.
It's incredible.
How old is he in 1983?
Well, he was born in 55.
Okay.
So I'm not good at math. I actually got like a 17% on my math.
28?
He was young.
And then we see a promo here from... Do we have the promo? Do we have the post-match promo from Jim?
I'm so excited to see all this.
Do we have it? There it is. Here it is.
There they are right here. The belts, Hito and I champions.
What a moment for you.
Oh, it's fantastic. The sweet smell of victory, huh, Hito? It's beautiful. It's beautiful, Ed. I'll tell you something, Brown and Myers. Hito and I are not going to run away from these belts. We're going to put them up every match if we have to. We're not going to hide behind them. If we have to fight the Assassin and Miller, we'll do it. We'll put it up anytime. We won't sit back for 2 or 3 months and not have put up a title bout.
I'm now, tonight, 6-time champion, Taksim Jam.
6 times you've had.
Tonight, very lucky, big night. Very intelligent
42 years ago
That is
today.
incredible.
Isn't that crazy?
You are. I love that you're a wrestling.
Well, I
historian.
have some help.
You're a wrestling historian. I love that.
I love that stuff.
Yeah, you're always so respectful to like our industry, and it's one of the reasons why I really wanted to speak with you today, and of course share this news, because I just love how you're just like, you ask great questions, and some of them aren't always easy to answer, but you're honest, you're real, and I think that's like, I think it's so good, especially this day and age when like people want honesty.
Especially in the wrestling world, right? Because now you guys, and by the way, speaking to the microphone so we hear you.
Sorry, I'm just like, I feel like we're just having coffee.
I know, this is great.
We're having coffee.
But the times have changed a little bit, right? Because excuse me, I'm getting emotional too. You guys, it's almost like the old school way of, you see The Rock do a post-fight press conference or a post-match press conference after the whole Cena thing at Chamber, and he's talking about his character. Could you imagine what your dad and Brett would think of that in the 80s? Where those lines are being blurred at the same event. You're doing an interview talking about what happened, but outside of the character. You like this or no?
It's so different. It's so different, because sometimes you just don't know what's
allowed and what's not.
It gets you really thinking. Like I look back to what Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso, they were doing. This is a long time ago, but they were doing like a press conference after a match, and I think they had a shot or something together, and they were so funny. You could tell that they were like a little drunk.
Yes.
But it was so funny, and like I love it when you kind of pull down that fourth wall.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think
break the fourth wall. It's the best.
It's just like it's. I think we're doing a lot more of that in WWE, and like it's fun because I feel like now, for the first time in my 18 years of being in WWE. And having grown up in it, I always felt, and that's what I was saying earlier, I just always felt like I had to be perfect, especially when Vince McMahon was in charge. Like, I just had to be perfect. I had to show him that, like, I was going to be the exact opposite of what my dad was. And I could be so professional, and I could just do everything that everybody wanted and say all the right things and do all the right things. And what I love right now is that Triple H and the powers that be, Nick Khan and our bosses, they're not expecting us to be perfect. They're not, they're letting us be real. And so when I had asked to do Bloodsport, and when I asked to do Billy Corgan's show, NWA, I very, very much wanted to do it. I fought very hard to do it because I was like, I really want to make this happen. Of course, with scheduling and like, it's WrestleMania week, we have to make sure everything kind of aligns. They were both Nick and Triple H were both super supportive of it. They were like, yeah, that sounds awesome. No problem. Like, it was, granted, we have to make sure, again, scheduling and that it's the right fit, and we have all the proper things aligned so that it's good for everyone. Right. But like, I could never have even dreamed of doing that prior. You know what I mean? Because
is there more of that to come for you?
There is.
Oh, there is?
Yes. I haven't
Anything you can tell us?
Those.
Okay.
That will be on the next stop for the Natty World Tour.
Okay.
But there is, and I want, like, that's why doing NWA is so important to me. Not only is Billy Corgan a really good friend of mine, I met him in 2006 at Brett's Hall of Fame ceremony.
Oh, wow.
And he introduced himself to me. He was with Mick Foley. And he came up to me and he was like, I'm a huge, fan of wrestling. And he's a fan of all wrestling. He loves wrestling. And so it was no surprise to me that he bought the NWA library.
Yeah.
He loves old school wrestling. He's a student of the game. But he is also an artist. And so Billy is all about the art. When you think about him and you think about his music and you think about, like, I went to one of his NWA shows and I was so impressed by how it was run. And I was like, of course it's run like this. Of course it's super professional, because Billy's a rock star. He's a massive rock star.
Yes.
He sells out MSG.
Yes.
So he knows what it's like to put on a beautiful production. And so being at a show backstage a little while ago, I was like, I really want to do Billy's show. And now with the vibe being so different in WWE and like us being allowed to do more stuff and have more opportunities, and not just like, on Raw or on SmackDown, like, I want to show what I can do in all sorts of different spaces. I want to show what I can do in a blood sport space. I want to show what I can do with Billy Corgan's, with NWA. And again, more shows, more things are coming, but I'm not going to give too many spoilers.
Okay.
But it's exciting because one of the things I love, and this is what Brett was amazing for in his entire career, I love giving back. And I will never not say that. I love it. I love it so much, but I want more. I want to do more. I want to be more. I want to be better, but I also want to help other people be better. I think when we all work together to be better, it just makes for a better product. So whomever I work with in Billy Corgan's, in NWA, I want them to go, wow, holy shit. I just learned so much when I do stuff at NXT. Like I was working with Carmen and I was working with Lola Vice. I had this incredible underground match with Lola Vice. And I had so much fun. It was probably my favorite match that I did last year. And after the match, you know, like it was I wanted it to be such a learning experience for her, but also for me, you know, and that's the thing is that the second Fit Finlay told me this, and Fit Finlay is one of the greatest professional wrestlers that ever lived, you know, and he could still kill people with his bare hands if he needed to, because he's amazing. But he told me the second that you stop learning, and the second that you don't think you need to learn, or that you don't think you need to grow, or that you've got it all figured out, is the second that you need to hang it up. And so I always thought about those words that Fit told me, and like Fit, even now, having been so deep into this, he's still a student of the game. Fit was our producer for the Underground match.
Okay.
And I learned so much, and I was like, wow, Fit opened my eyes to things that I never knew, and then I was able to transfer that to Lola, and then she was able to grow out of it. It's about growing everyone and growing myself. Like, it's funny because sometimes I'll see, I was talking about this a little bit the other day on Busted Open Radio, but I was about like, sometimes you'll see headlines and like somebody will be like, Natalya's this, or, you know, so-and-so's that, or it's like, at first you're like, whoa, wait, what? Wait, why are they saying this about me? But sometimes they're right. And that's what I said to Bubba, because he had made a comment,
I saw
and
this.
I was like, Bubba, no shit. Like
he was critical, and you
he was
your
critical.
feelings were a little bit hurt,
He was
right?
critical, and
What did he say?
He just said something along the lines of like, WWE hasn't done anything with Natty, something along those lines. But here's my thing: is that's why I'm taking a chance on myself in a way that I've never done before, and I need to. Like, I need to run the gauntlet on my career to prove.
Of this.
Yeah, like it's so important to me. That's why I've fought so hard to do more, and I'm excited to do more outside of my regular space. It's so easy. Like, and it's like I said earlier, I sleep in a nice bed. I don't sleep well because I'm so hungry. I wake up and I'm hungry. Like, I just want to do more. And that's why I started writing the book. That's why I coach. I train in my dungeon on my days off. I was in there last week 3 different times with a group of 3 different groups working on all sorts of stuff, training for Bloodsport, training for WWE, training with, you know, my cousin Harry Smith came in and he was coaching. And it's like, I'm so hungry, and I'm about to announce a couple of other projects that I'm working on, but like, I just want to do everything. Like, I don't go to bed comfortable thinking like, oh, I've got it all figured out now, and I'm just so comfortable. Like, like that's what I love about Becky. You know, that's what I love about, she always wants to grow and do more. And sometimes, you know, when women want more, we may be perceived as being difficult, or, you know, but it's important to have growth, you know, like just because I've been doing this a long time doesn't mean that I don't need and want more. But you also, like, for me, I have to take it upon myself to make those changes happen. I can't just expect. The wrestling business doesn't owe me anything. It doesn't owe me anything. The wrestling business owes none of us anything. And so
I would argue if there's one family that is owed, it's your family. If we're being, I know that's a cliche, but like, honestly, the wrestling gods owe you guys a lot. I mean, come on.
You. But I just try to wake up with not having that sense of entitlement, but going, what?
There's the family right there. We were just showing your family.
Oh, I love that.
Look at this family right here. I mean, this is royalty.
That's the heart out.
This is Canadian royalty. This is wrestling royalty. Greatest family in wrestling history. There's not even a question.
Thank you. I'm so proud of my family, but like, for me, I never feel like I'm owed anything. I always want to earn my spot. The women's division in WWE has never been this strong ever. It has never been so competitive. When I look at the women in NXT, and I look at the women on Raw, and I look at the women on SmackDown, I'm like, this is the greatest women's, like as a whole, collectively, this is the strongest that it's ever been.
And who helped usher in that era?
Thank you.
Pioneer, the trailblazer, you know it.
Well, and the thing is, though, is that I don't rest on all the things that I've done. I don't go, wow, I did this, or I have this, or I did that, or I had this match. I've had some incredible matches. You know, one of my favorite matches of my entire career is against Charlotte Flair, TakeOver 2014. It was a very, very first TakeOver, and it was only in front of 200 people. And I love that match more than any WrestleMania that I've ever done.
Wow.
It was like just such a special match, and it was at NXT. But I never just rely on great matches or things that I've done in the past. Like, for me, I think you got to earn your spot. So in all seriousness, I feel like I need to step outside of WWE to work my way back in.
Wow. I mean, that's a profound statement in itself. I spoke to you around 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago in Las Vegas before Money in the Bank when you were going up against Ronda Rousey. It was the morning of the match, and I asked you at the very end, like, what's there left for you to do? You've done it all, and you said, I want to headline WrestleMania. That's like the last thing. Now, speaking to you 2.5 years later, it feels like the goal is completely different.
Oh, I still want to headline WrestleMania.
You still, but
Yes.
there's things that are lighting a fire under you. Like, this is a different person that I'm speaking to.
I mean,
there's a chip on your shoulder.
Yeah, and I think you have to have that. You know what I mean? Like, you have to want more for yourself. You cannot rest on, oh, well, I'm in WWE. It's funny because, again, writing the book, I realized, because I had to go back and go through all my journals and go through, like, my life, and I realized to get the contract with WWE was so hard. People, again, that's all documented in the story, but it was so hard to get it. And then once I got into developmental, signed my first WWE contract for $24,000 a year. I was so excited. I felt like I was the richest person in the world. It got even harder. I got to developmental and it was a struggle. It was hard because it gets even more competitive.
Right.
Then I got called up to SmackDown and it got even harder. And then all these years later, 18 years later, I realized this is hard. Holy shit, this is hard. This is so hard, but I love it because you never stop growing. And I think that's why it's all so addicting because, like when I look at, for example, he's going into the Hall of Fame this year, but Triple H, like look at all the different things that he's done in his career. He started out as a talent. He's always loved wrestling history. He's like a student of the game when it comes to like, if you talk about old school wrestling with Triple H, like Buddy Rogers and like old school stuff, he loves collecting all that stuff, like Gorgeous George, and like he loves wrestling history. He started out as a performer, and then he started working his way behind the scenes to learn how all of it works. And it's so important to do that because we're not all going to wrestle forever. So he started learning the ins and outs, but it's not just about like when you're a talent, and I know this because my husband is a producer. TJ has said, he's like, it's so different when you're a producer because there's so much other stuff that you have to look at. He's not just a wrestling coach at all. When you work in WWE, you're like, as a producer, you're a television producer.
Yeah.
You got to figure out angles, especially now with us being on Netflix. Everything is geared towards television. It's entertainment. It's all, there's so many different factors that you have to look at. So you see the transition from Triple H as a talent to working behind the scenes to the role that he has now. And it's just been like, it's been a slow progression of building, growing. And then you realize like, oh, those are the things that like you make mistakes, you learn from them. You make gains, you have losses. Oh, this didn't work. I wonder why that didn't work, or that worked great. Let's do more of that. Or it's all just a learning experience, but it's also fun because no day is ever the same. No crowd is ever the same. No show is ever the same. There's all sorts of manipulating variables that make what we do in WWE so different and so challenging at times too. I mean, I've been in like situations where there was a volcano in Europe and nobody could get back and they had to completely rewrite Raw with all like people that weren't supposed to be on the show sort of thing, but like even through the pandemic, when we did the show through the pandemic, we never missed anything. We kept going and going. And during that time, a lot of people kept their jobs because our show kept going. We led the way for WWE, really led the way for so many other places that kind of have the courage to keep going, in sports. Like we were kind of I feel like we were the leaders of that, where it was like, listen, even during the most crucial times in people's lives, we still need entertainment. We still need an outlet. And so like, I think about all that, I loved working during the pandemic. It was,
you did in front of no one,
even though there was no
you were allowed
audience,
to try things different.
It was just a different challenge.
Yeah.
It was a different challenge, and it really brought all of us girls, especially in the locker room, it brought us all really like closer together. And the locker room is such a special place. Like it is such a sacred place. It is so special. And even this past Royal Rumble, we had we had the Rumble, and then we had a big toast in the locker room. And I love that all of us girls came together. I'm not going to say all of us, but a good portion of us came together because I'm not saying all of us because I don't want to break,
Oh yeah.
I gotta.
Kayfabe.
I'm old school like that.
Sure.
I can't
that.
act like.
I respect that.
I can't act like people that are challenging each other.
No. Driving in the same car, that's crazy.
Driving in the same car, I know. Trust me, when my dad was working for my grandfather in Stampede Wrestling, like if you were a heel, you couldn't ride with the babyface, and if you were caught doing that, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
My grandfather was like, even when people would come over to get their paycheck, because my grandmother, she was like the one that gave like Andre the Giant his paycheck. they had to like it all. The kids, like my mom growing up, she was so scared of like the heels when they would come in the kitchen and like ask for their money, and it'd be like, these bad guys, and they would have to kind of remain in character because the kids didn't know that it was like. So I digress.
Yes.
But doing a big toast after the Women's Royal Rumble, it was like so special because it just reminded me of like we all just love this and we all want to do great work and we all need each other. You know what I mean? And so I love those moments because you don't get those moments. That's why the women's locker room, especially, it's so special. We had really experienced that closeness during the pandemic. And I love those times. But like, those are the moments too that are like, I was saying that when I was working on my book, I was saying that like some of the best moments in my career weren't always in the ring. They were behind the scenes where you're hugging somebody after a match. Like I worked with Lacey Evans in Saudi Arabia and we did the first ever women's match in Saudi Arabia. And it was just like, we came back and like, we were the first women to perform in Saudi Arabia. And we had this incredible like embrace after. And like, it was so like, I'll never forget it, but she got on the phone and called her little daughter up. And she's like, I did this for you, and she was crying, her daughter was crying, but like, it was such a like transcending moment for like women. And I just remember those times where it's like, this business can really make you feel a certain way. And a lot of the times it's in the best way.
Wow. What a life. What a freaking life.
And,
what stories,
by the
what
way,
passion.
there's still so much in
by the
the
way,
story.
this is I want to read the rest of the book now. Is it October 28th that it comes out?
I believe so, yes.
Can people
I'm not
pre-order
sure.
it yet?
You can pre-order it today.
Yes, okay.
So I'll put
Wow.
a link up on my link in my bio.
Yes. And you have a foreword by The Rock and a preface by Bret Hart.
So actually, I want to do a double forward by both of them. So we're still working on that.
Listen, that's
but
those are two pretty big names.
Yeah, I wanted Bret and The Rock to do the forward. So and both of them are such inspirations to me, and of course it's very, very important to me to be able to like collaborate with two people that of course have grown up in this and have loved this as much as I do, and just contribute in different ways. So they're both massive inspirations for me. So.
One last question before I let you go. We could talk for 3 hours, but we have to go, unfortunately. Could I just get your opinion as someone who's been in the business, John Cena turning heel?
Ooh, well, I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again.
Okay.
Let me have a little. Let me have a little sip of this tea.
Yes. Okay. Oh, I know what you're going to say. Can I guess?
You can guess.
You're going to say if you watch Total Divas, you saw this version of John Cena, right?
So I was on every damned episode of Total Divas.
But this is different, no?
No, but like it's funny because I joke about it because John is like, listen, in real life, John is a damn sweetheart. He is one of the most generous, kind, compassionate people that you will ever meet. But if you go to John Cena's house, you better damn well take your shoes off and you better use a coaster.
I respect that. I saw that one scene where his girlfriend at the time puts the wine glass on the island.
Yes.
And gets mad about this.
And but I mean, this is the thing is that and John Cena says this is his, prior to turning heel, he said that this was, his final run in WWE. So he basically has got to just like pull out every stop. Yeah. And the one thing that everybody's been wanting to see him do is turn heel.
Yes.
And I think that like when I look at Roman Reigns, I think the best work that Roman's ever done is as a heel. He's so exciting that he actually turned himself to being a babyface because people just love him so much because it's just the world is different now. So now like John Cena's heel turn was the most viewed thing ever in wrestling.
Incredible.
But it's cool because that's, again, the exciting thing about WWE is that you just want to see what's going to happen next. That's why our company is on fire. Literally, we're doing so well because it's like reading a great book. You want to know what the next chapter is going to be. You want to get to like, you want to get to the juicy stuff. And that's why I'm excited for people to read my book because we just shared a little bit, but there's so much more to share. There's a lot of thought-provoking conversations. There's stuff that people might not also agree with, but it's my story. It's my story. It's my journey. It's the way I saw it. And it's the stuff that that happened to me and it's through my eyes. And it's funny because in Becky Lynch's book, she has a little disclaimer at the front. She's like, listen, I've been body slammed a lot. So this is how I saw it. This is how I remembered it. And I told Becky, I love that because this is how I remember it. And, there's going to be some really important conversations that we're going to have that we've never had before in WWE. Like we've never publicly talked about, but WWE and the powers that be are letting me discuss them for the first time in this book. So it's scary. It's scary to think about talking about them, but like in talking with my family and my mom and my sisters, like we all agree that it's going to be very powerful and I think it'll help change people's lives. So thank you so much,
It's very
Ariel.
well written. It's very honest. I got to read like 3-4 chapters, 5 chapters yesterday, and I was like, wow, you go into it, it, and there's a lot that's happened to you. So I urge everyone to pre-order. I urge everyone to check it out, and maybe when it comes out, you can come back on.
Yes.
In October or anytime. You're welcome here anytime. And please say hello to your family, to your uncle. Tell him I love him dearly, and he's my hero.
Oh, really. I will. And Brett is like, he's my hero too. I love Brett. And listen, nobody does Pink and Black like Brett does, but like
still to this day,
if somebody was going to do it almost as good, I definitely think it would be me.
Oh my God. You have carried the flag. You have done that tremendously, and the torch.
Well, I've had great people that are like amazing, an amazing family and amazing role models to look up to. And just, I'm so lucky and so grateful that like my family has been able to help me get to where I'm at today, and that I'm still able to do the things that I love in WWE. Because, you know, it's not easy to have made it this far, but I'm also like, if it all ended for me tomorrow, it has been the best ride.
No, the ride's not over. You've got a great year coming up.
Listen, got some great stuff coming up. And by the way, I'm definitely going to be a champion again. So mark my words. If I'm not a champion by this year, then you know what? Then we can talk about the ride being over.
All right. Thank you so much, Natalya Neidhart, one of one, pioneer, trailblazer, future Hall of Famer from the most famous and best family in wrestling history. Thanks for watching this video. Before you go, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button for us. Also, give us a thumbs up, leave a nice comment. These things go a long way. And while you're here, do check out the rest of the channel. We've got live shows and full interviews, clips, and a whole lot more. We're doing big things here, and we appreciate your support very much.